This week on Law Next, innovating in-house. A year ago, venerable Magic Circle firm Allen Overy opened Fuse, setting aside a portion of its London office for a collaborative innovation space to develop and test new legal technologies. And it named lawyer Shruti Ajitsaria to head the project. Shruti is my guest today to talk about why Allen Overy started Fuse and to bring us up to date on its activities so far. This is Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to Law Next, the podcast that brings you the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law.
We'll get to today's interview in just a moment, but first, let's hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. And now, on to this week's interview.
Shruti Ajitsaria, it's a pleasure to have you with me today.
Thank you so much.
Shruti, you and I met in Amsterdam last April. We both spoke at the Lexpo conference, and I first heard you talk about Fuse at that time. By your own description, you were a derivatives lawyer who barely knew how to turn on your iPhone. How did you get from there to becoming head of your firm's innovation space?
I think the first thing I should probably admit is I've just upgraded to a new iPhone and I can barely use that either. So times have not changed very much for me. But I had been doing derivatives at Allen Overy for my entire career. And on the side, I had been investing in small businesses. So I angel invest together with my husband. And we do it such that we have a startup come to our home on a Sunday evening, mostly. And we'll sit down with some pizza and beers and speak to the business and meet the founders and decide whether or not to make a personal investment. And I had one such Sunday where a legal tech startup came to my home and they said that they wanted to change the way that people negotiated derivatives documents. And it was a platform and it would allow you to know exactly what the terms were of your derivatives portfolio at the press of a button. And I loved the idea and I invested in it, but I found it really frustrating that the first time I had seen legal tech like that was at home on my sofa rather than having seen it in my law firm. So I went off on maternity leave shortly after I invested in that business and spent quite a lot of that time investigating a business plan and the possibilities of finding ways to connect my law firm with startups. And happily for me, when I came back to work from my maternity leave, my senior partner had had a very similar idea. So we worked together with Jonathan Brain, who's our head of innovation here at Allen Overy, to put together a plan. And shortly after, we opened Fuse.
A number of firms have started in-house incubators, but you describe Fuse not really as an incubator, but more as a collaborative technology innovation space. What's the concept behind Fuse?
So the concept is that actually I wanted to try and be flexible. So I didn't want to just aim at early stage companies. So if you look, each time that we've run this program, we've done it twice so far for 6 months each. And each time we've had a real mix of companies. So all the way from someone who had started an idea of a pro bono app to connect refugees with free legal advice. And that was the winner of the Law Without Walls program. But really at the time that we took them in, it was just an idea, all the way through to something like Raven, iManage, or Neotologic, which isn't a startup. So not being an incubator allows us to get companies at various different stages of development and to do different things with them, because some of the companies that we house are looking for different use cases, whereas others of them are looking for input from lawyers, whereas others are just looking for Allen Overy to license their technology. So it allows us to be a bit more bespoke with the way in which we deal with each of the companies that comes in.
How do you go about selecting them? How have you chosen the companies you've had 2 cohorts so far. How have you gone about choosing the companies to participate?
So it's a mixture really of internal input and external input. So we put out a call for applicants, and each time we've had in the region of 80 applicants per cohort. And when we get them in, the first thing that we do is there's a very small team of us that do a sort of a quick whittle down, and we choose the best in class in each sector. And then I take them to an A&O partner within the relevant business area and ask them to look at the application and say whether or not the idea is of interest to them. And from that, we choose a few to bring along on a selection day. So at the selection day, we have a selection committee, which is comprised of some clients as well as a VC. And then we also have the Allen Overy potential sponsor come along to the day And from that, we have half an hour per company to pitch and answer questions. And the A&O sponsor gets an opportunity to meet the founder and decide whether or not they'd actually be able to do anything with them.
What's the thinking behind kind of bringing them to a sponsor, to a partner sponsor within the firm? Why are you doing that?
To me, the most useful thing that we can possibly do is to make sure that before we choose the companies, we have real Allen Overy engagement. So there is no point in choosing a really, really good legal tech company if the relevant Allen Overy person isn't going to engage with the business or won't understand the proposition or doesn't like the founder. So I try and do all of that work up front such that when the company lands on day one, we can sit down together and make a plan as to how we're going to help that company reach the milestones that it wants to, knowing that the Allen Overy input is there and that the person that's going to be responsible for providing support is genuinely willing.
So what happens with a company once it's selected? They participate for 6 months. They, I guess, set up shop right in your offices there in London. What happens over the course of that 6 months?
Yeah, so we love having the companies sitting here with us in Fuse, and every day is different. But the majority of the time is spent either showcasing what they're doing to our internal lawyers or else to our clients. And that's kind of the beginnings, I think, of how they show people what they're doing. So we do 5-minute pitches where someone just stands up and just says, here, in a very short period of time, is the essence of what I'm doing. And from there, we find that our A&O lawyers are often inspired to find out more. So then they'll come down and discuss different possible use cases, following which we might start a few different pilots, which may or may not lead to us licensing the technology of the company. So it's quite a sort of a long process, really, but it's about allowing our lawyers to touch and feel what's available so that we can honestly be experts. When our clients say, please, could you do a review of 10,000 documents and find these X pieces of information? We may have tried various different providers and know which one is the right one for the job.
How do you get the lawyers in the firm involved in this? What's their response been to it?
Do you know, I have to say the thing I've most enjoyed about Fuse is that I am incredibly proud of how responsive our lawyers have been. We've actually had thousands of lawyers come into the space, spend the time to listen to the pitches, they bring their clients. Fuse it wouldn't be anything really without the internal support. But because people do bring their clients along, they want to see what's going on, they have ideas and they're enthusiastic because they want to work better. It's actually been incredibly well received and we've been very, very lucky.
Is there Fuse envy? I mean, you're a big firm, a global firm with offices all over the world. Are there partners in remote locations who wish they could be there to participate?
So a couple of things. I think one of the things we are looking at and considering is how we ensure that it's not just the London office that benefits. So I've done a few trips to our foreign offices this year, and we're looking at various different ways of injecting the same knowledge and enthusiasm to various different locations. So I'm off to our Madrid office on Monday, for example. But I think, if we look forward, I think we will start to think about how to start to roll it out possibly more globally, or to me, it's not really about Fuse so much as it is just injecting into all of our lawyers globally the notion that working well for your clients involves understanding technology and what to use when and how to use it to the best of your ability. And whether that takes the form of Fuse or something else is sort of irrelevant.
But I would think that sort of hands-on, the ability to go down and sit and talk to these companies and work directly with them would be a huge advantage towards that goal.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right. I mean, one of the things that we do is when people are visiting from foreign offices, we actually have a space where people can do client confidential work from Fuse. So it's an access controlled area. So often if we have a visiting lawyer from a different office, they'll come and spend the day working in Fuse so that it gives them easy access. Or else we've done a roadshow. So we went out to Brussels and I took 2 or 3 of my cohort members out with me. and we gave a presentation to some clients, but we also met with internal lawyers. So there are lots of different ways of approaching it, and we're just investigating what we think the right approach is.
In the normal course, you take no equity in these companies, although I think you have taken equity in one of them as a result of its participation in Fuse. But in the normal course, you take no equity. They pay you nothing to participate. What's in it for Allen Overy? Why is it doing this?
I think we have to accept, and you probably are one of the biggest proponents of the fact that we have to accept as lawyers that times are changing and our clients won't accept us charging high fees, doing things inefficiently, taking a long time to do things because we're doing them manually instead of using technology where we should be. I think the landscape is changing. People are becoming better educated about what the art of the possible is. And as lawyers, we need to change as well. So the benefit to us is to make sure that we are as best informed as we can be, and that we truly understand the technologies that are available, that we get to see what is coming up the track. You know, if I look at my competitors, almost everyone would have licensed an AI provider of some description, but Fuse actually allows us to see things that are coming up the track and which are much more nascent. So, for example, having Bloomsbury AI in our cohort was brilliant. And even though they were bought by Facebook, it was great for us to have an opportunity to see what natural language processing technology can look like. And so for us, I think it's about educating our lawyers. It's about inspiring our lawyers to work better. It's about showing our clients that this really does matter to us. It's about doing things in collaboration with our clients. And actually, it's about being a part of the legal tech ecosystem.
Was it, when you first proposed this within the firm, was it a tough sell, or did people get it right away? I mean, what kinds of concerns did partners have about going down this road, if any?
Do you know, I sound like I've really drunk the Allen Overy Kool-Aid, but I honestly have to say that I can't think of a firm that would have received an idea like this with the open arms with which we did. So I think we have a reputation actually for innovating and trying new things and having a go. And one of the best things that our senior partner did when he originally presented this idea to the board was to say, you know, it's brave and it's different, and we have to be prepared to give it a go, even if we're not 100% sure what it's going to turn into or what the benefits will be. And I love that attitude. And I think that's actually one of the reasons why Fuse has been so well received internally, because that's the sort of people that Allen Overy attracts, is people that are willing to have a go and try their best and do things even if they're not 100% certain of what the outcome will be, provided that they think it's going to be a good outcome. I just think the culture of this firm is brilliant.
As you said, these are not just startups, early stage companies. Some of these are fairly well developed. I mean, you've got Neota Logic, Kira Systems in the current cohort. What do you think is in it for them? What do they get out of this that they wouldn't otherwise have?
So I think for someone like Kira, we would have put their technology onto every lawyer's desktop, let's say. But lawyers are actually quite reluctant to try new things. We don't really love going to sandwich lunch IT training. I'm not sure that people really would have grabbed hold of it and tried to use it and really embraced it if they hadn't have had an opportunity to get to see it in practice and to speak to one of the people who's at Kira and to develop a relationship with them and to have a chance to ask all of the stupid questions that they would never pick up the phone to an IT support desk to help to ask. So for someone like Kira or Neota, I think it just makes sure that we haven't just licensed the technology, but that we're actually using it and that we're using it to the best of our ability. Because if we were to have a bad experience with it or to use it for the wrong use cases, then people would just be put off using it. So having them here allows them to guide people and make sure that we're using it well and that people are having good experiences.
And do you think they're learning about their own product as well in the process of that?
I think they're definitely expanding their range of use cases. So I think they will have come in with fixed ideas about how they could be used. And as they get different departments down, slightly esoteric departments, such as the derivatives department, might come up with different use cases to the ones that they may have seen in, say, a firm which has a very strong corporate practice.
We'll get back to my interviews in just a moment. But first, let's take a break to hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. And now, let's continue this week's interview.
In this collaborative innovation space, are your clients involved? And if so, how so?
So I think the second thing that I have most loved about Fuse is the reception that we've had from our clients. I remember when we set it up, the notion was always that we would be able to have it as a space that clients could visit and where they could come and see legal tech. And I remember one of the concerns was, well, how are we ever going to get a client to think this is interesting enough to come and make the visit to our offices and come and see legal tech in practice? And actually the exact opposite has been true. So we have welcomed a large number of our clients through our doors. We've had an opportunity to have some really interesting discussions, and particularly, from my derivatives background, it's really interesting to speak to my financial institution clients, many of whom are setting up their own fintech accelerators or digital initiatives and looking at venture arms themselves, because it means that we actually can better understand their strategy, and it allows us to really genuinely closely align ourselves with our clients. And I love that.
Are you looking for companies to participate that have products that are, how do I put this, that are lawyer facing or that are client facing? I mean, are the products ones that tend to help lawyers do their jobs more efficiently or better, or are some of the products ones that are directed outwardly to clients and to their use cases?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture, really. We have had in a reg tech business, so we had in Corelytics, for example, which was probably of most interest to our financial institution clients, more than being a tool that we Allen Overy lawyers would necessarily use on a day-to-day basis. So we took them in because we thought genuinely that it would give them a great opportunity to showcase what they were doing to a wide variety of clients. And also we thought our clients would be really interested in what they were doing. On the other hand, we have someone like Legatics, which simplifies the conditions precedent process by putting it onto a platform and giving everybody visibility on where you are in the banking transaction at any given time, which actually really is one for lawyers to use. And it's not one for our clients. So we have a mixture. And that's one of the things that's really nice about not being an incubator is we don't have to do the same thing each time, and we can change based on experiences and based on client feedback. So one of the companies in our current cohort was recommended to me by a client who said that they were interested in this particular business and they were trying to keep an eye on it and see what it was doing. And so we met them and brought them into the Fuse cohort because it's helpful and it was a nice synergy and good for us to be able to keep an eye on it simultaneously with our client.
So it was a year ago in September that you officially opened your door. What have been some of the success stories? I mean, you just mentioned Legatics. Is that that's one that you have since adopted throughout the firm, as I understand it? Did you consider that one of the successes of Fuse over the past year?
Yes, I would, and I love Legatics. And what's so nice about it is that when they came in, we spent some time setting them up on a pilot, and that was in London. And after that, a couple of different jurisdictions expressed an interest in piloting their technology. So we did a couple more pilots. And then we actually took them along to the Global Banking Partners Conference, where all of our banking partners got to see Legatics. And the success to me was the fact that coming back from the Banking Partners Conference, I spent a week getting calls from banking partners across the globe saying, I love that thing I saw at the conference. How do I use it on my next deal? I'd like to use it on my next deal. How quickly can I use it on my next deal? And it was that led us to license their technology. But it felt to me like a real win because there's not very many firms where you could work where you would have banking partners calling you up, asking you to use technology.
Other success stories? Are there others that you'd point to as that really stand out to you as examples of what you kind of hope this would be?
Yeah, so I think different members of our cohort show me different things. So with Navora, we've achieved some really interesting firsts in partnerships. So through the FCA sandbox, we've been involved in the world's first ever cryptocurrency bond issuance on a public blockchain, as well as the world's first structured product launched on a public blockchain. And those for us were great wins because it means that our understanding and knowledge of smart contracts and blockchain and cryptocurrencies and document automation is just enhanced beyond what it would have been had they not have been infused and had we not have been able to touch and feel that technology every day. One of our cohort members, Evoca, which was in cohort 1 and has stayed on for cohort 2, has been a huge success internally. Lots of our lawyers are trying various different things. We've got quite a number of pilots on with them at the moment. Similarly, we have Signal Media in at the moment, which we started a pilot with, which we are just going to pick up again and do a new pilot and sort of continuation of that pilot with. So that to me is another good success. I think each company has brought something new and different to our thinking and taught us something new and different. And actually, even the ones where we haven't wound up licensing their technology. So for example, Corelytics taught me a lot about the reg tech ecosystem and the environment and the art of the possible. And even though the technology wasn't really for us, it still was a huge benefit to us to have it in the Fuse cohort.
And Navora is one in which the firm has taken an equity interest.
Yes.
Is that right? That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
It was also, as you alluded earlier to Bloomsbury AI, which was in July was revealed that they were being acquired by Facebook, and they were part of the second cohort that you had. Do you count that as a success? That I guess they basically left the program at that point.
Yeah, I mean, Bloomsbury was a really interesting one because their technology was so fascinating, and it was clearly could do lots of different things, but the founder that we met wasn't actually a lawyer. So what he really needed was lawyer input to help him test the boundaries of his technology on different types of regulation. And that would have, I think, been quite a long and interesting journey. And I think it would have actually gone very well. But to me, it's a real success because part of what we're trying to do is lift the entire ecosystem. And for them, it was a great success story. And, I want to make sure that all of our cohort members have a positive experience. And I want to ensure that we're as helpful to them as we can be. And I want to ensure that people want to apply to Allen Overy's Fuse, because otherwise we won't get the best in class. And so for me, the fact that they got picked up from Allen Overy's Views by Facebook is it's a measure of success. It shows that we had chosen well, it shows that we chose quality people. And I wish them the absolute best of luck because they were lovely. And I'm sure we'll stay in touch. And, I have no idea where it will go from here, but I have no doubt that something good will come of it.
What impact, if any, has Fuse had on kind of the overall culture of the firm at Allen Overy?
I wouldn't be arrogant enough to say that I think in a year we've changed the culture of the firm. But I think what it's been very good at doing is to provide a cohesiveness, because I think before Fuse there were lots of pockets of people who were extremely interested in doing something different or innovating, or they had a legal tech idea, but there was no one place for everybody to congregate. And the nice thing about having a physical space is that you see the same faces again and again, and people start to make connections about who the various different people are in different departments who are all just so interested in the same space. And I think that has been really nice because you can see a community growing of entrepreneurs, if you like, and people who are really pushing the boundaries and having ideas and creating a support network for each other and having an opportunity to bounce ideas off each other, I think is actually very powerful.
What is your thinking on, as I mentioned earlier, there have been a number of firms that have started incubators of one kind or another. What is your thinking at this point on whether, not every firm, but should firms be thinking about doing this in general? Like what has your experience suggested in terms of whether this is something that firms should be doing?
I think to me, the first question that firms should be asking themselves is what do we want to achieve? Like, what do we want to get better at? And for us, at the time that we opened Fuse, I think the key thing that we wanted to get better at was understanding the legal tech ecosystem and seeing what was out there and understanding what the various different technologies could achieve and how and what input it would need from us and levels of accuracy and all the other things that come with it when you're a lawyer. And so for us, the easiest way of doing that was to have a physical space within the office, because it meant that we would genuinely get engagement from the lawyers because we were making it easy for them. So to the other firms, it sort of depends on what they hope to get out of it. I think for us, Fuse just did the things that we wanted it to do. And each firm has to look at the culture of its own people, look at whether or not they actually genuinely have an openness and a willingness and a determination and are happy to try things knowing that it might well fail, or whether they're not of that mindset and that's not what they're seeking to achieve. And only, each firm will have its own culture, its own types of people, and its own strategy as to its use of legal tech.
So a year into this, what have you personally learned about innovation during that time?
Is it really contrary to say that well, you know me hopefully well enough to know that I am quite contrary, but I don't feel like, people always talk about Fuse as being innovative and they talk about innovation, but to me, Fuse was never about that. Fuse was only ever about common sense and about doing our job better. And for me,
you call it an innovation space. Right? The firm calls it an innovation space.
We do.
So don't blame me for that.
Yeah, I won't blame you for that. I'm just being personally contrary as usual. But I think what it's taught me is that our lawyers actually genuinely want to work to the best of their ability for our clients. B, that our clients are honestly interested. So it's not a tick box exercise. They really do want to know what legal tech is out there. They want to know that their law firms are using it, and they want to know that their law firms know what to use, when to use it, and how to use it. But also, as I say, it is really about common sense. It's about looking at a matter that you're instructed on and thinking, actually, this is one where high levels of accuracy are required. And so, in fact, we might be better off doing a manual review. Or this is a moment where people just want to know an answer quickly and they want a rough estimation, in which case the practical answer is that I might try an AI tool. And I think it is just about, if you know what is out there and what's possible, you can easily make the connections. The bit that I think we were lacking before Fuse was that we actually just didn't know what the art of the possible was.
When we met in Amsterdam earlier this year, you took issue with something I said in my talk, which was that the law firm structure tends to inhibit innovation. You're proving me wrong, I guess, with Fuse, and good for you for doing that. Good for Allen Overy.
Thank you.
But I know that you have to run, and I really appreciate your taking the time to get on the line with me and talk to me about Fuse. It's been great to talk to you.
Oh, it's always nice to speak to you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks so much. We've been talking with Shruti Ajitsaria, the head of Fuse at Allen Overy in London. Thanks for listening. This is Law Next. If you like what you hear, please head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive review and subscribe to receive future episodes. This is Bob Ambrogi.